Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Social Capital Guide podcast, where we explore the transformative power of relationships, mentorship, and social capital in creating impactful careers and thriving communities. I'm your host, Bevon Joseph, and today we have an incredible guest with us who embodies the intersection of innovation, education, and social impact. Joining us is Rick Benbow, Regional Vice President at Western Governors University, America's first and largest competency-based university. Rick is a seasoned leader with a deep commitment to expanding access to affordable, high-quality education for underserved adult learners. At WGU, he oversees strategic initiatives that optimize student success and foster partnerships that drive value for both students and employers. Rick's career journey is equally impressive. He held executive roles at UCLA, Time Warner Cable, and the City of Los Angeles, and has consistently championed efforts to empower individuals through education and community engagement. He is a proud graduate of Howard University, where he earned his bachelor's in business management and international business. He holds advanced degrees from the University of Southern California and the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. Today, we'll dive into Rick's inspiring journey, explore the critical role of social capital in career development, and discuss how initiatives like WGU's Tech Impactors Network are bridging the gap for underserved communities in the age of AI and workforce transformation. Rick, it's an absolute pleasure, my friend, to have you here today. Welcome to the show. All right, Rick. Always good to see you, my brother. You and I were chatting before about every time we get together, we seem to have a lot to talk about, and we've been trying to connect for a while to do this right here. So I appreciate you making time. I've been following you for a while, really inspired by the work you're doing. But again, man, just thanks for making time to do this. I know it's the end of the year, people are busy and stuff, but long overdue chat here with you and I, man.
Absolutely happy to do it. And thank you for all that you're doing, for the opportunities that you're creating for underrepresented individuals seeking, their career paths so they can make their mark in the world. And I guess today's conversation is about that work and how important it is for individuals to have mentors, coaches, as they kind of seek, their place in life, but also as they look for, their own opportunities. So I appreciate all the work that you do. And yeah, happy to be here. And thank you for having me.
Definitely, man. So we'll cover a few things today. One being the role of social capital in career development. The other one being internships and workforce development in today's world. We know how that's changing really quickly. The Tech Impactors Network. Excited to talk about that and how you're building that ecosystem and the importance of exposure and access for young people in particular. And also the future of work and AI, man. With the direction that's heading, we know that's changing really quickly. So those are some of the things we'll cover today. But to kick it off, man, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey. I have your bio. We can go through that, but I like to hear it straight from the guest, man. Like, where are you from? How did you get started? How did you end up where you are today, man?
Yeah, again, thank you for having me. Rick Benbow, Vice President for Western Governors University here in the West region, cover the states of California, Nevada, Arizona, and really amplifying Western Governors University and the impact that we can have of creating equitable pathways for those underrepresented, underserved individuals who are seeking opportunity through education. And this is something very near and dear to my heart. And as someone who firmly believes in the power of education, I believe that everybody should have that right to invest in themselves so that they can, again, find their place and their mark in this world and pursue their dreams and passions in terms of where they think they can make an impact or drive an impact. And so this is really a labor of love for me. I think it was Ray Lewis, who was a middle linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, where he said, you really pay me to practice, you get Sundays for free, because he loves playing football that much. And this is very, very similar to me, but it seems like I am not working. But this is probably one of the best organizations that I've been a part of because it's so mission driven and really so focused on like driving student outcomes and ensuring that the barriers that impact the populations that we want to serve the most are removed from the higher ed bridge, if you will. And so just really, really loving the work that I do. WGU is the nation's first and largest competency-based university. Currently enrolled, we have about 190,000 students nationwide. We have about 400, actually just surpassed the 400,000 mark of degrees conferred. We've been around 27 years, and those numbers and those statistics are just astonishing considering, you have the likes of Penn State, who's been around 100 plus years. Their alumni are tapped out at like 100 or 800,000. We are halfway there in a 27-year span. And so what that says to me is that we are serving and providing a service that people are looking for. 4 different colleges, 60-degree programs at the bachelor's and master's level in high demand fields: School of Business, Levitt School of Health, our School of Technology, and our School of Education. And so, competency based nonprofit organization for those individuals who are looking for pathways to education so that can improve their circumstances. I don't think there is a better option out there with WGU. And again, just something that aligns with my values and what I'm trying to do while I'm here on this earth in terms of like making an impact or leaving a legacy. So, yeah, just very, very happy to be here.
Impressive, man. And competency based, right? We all talk about work and exposure, and we've seen the shift to like skills based hiring and all that stuff. So super impressive the impact the organization has had right in just 27 years. So kudos to you and the staff over there for the amazing work you're doing, man. And so this podcast is all about social capital and talking about work and career readiness. First question for you, man. Like, can you share a little bit about how building social capital has influenced your career journey and your professional growth as well?
Wow, great question. To me, social capital is the key, particularly for underrepresented and underserved individuals. I was very, very fortunate coming out of Howard University way back when in the height of aerospace here in Southern California, looking for an internship. I think it was the first summer I did not work. I couldn't find that corporate internship that is kind of like, the first step into your entryway into like that, very, very ideal career path for a recent graduate. Very, very fortunate to bump into, I guess, a family friend, if you will, who knew somebody in aerospace. And at that particular time, aerospace was very open to increasing minority representation within the field. And so they had relationships with maybe the Black Engineer Society in the United States, and they recruited young undergraduate engineers from HBCUs. They recruited Hispanics who were also members of maybe the Hispanic, Engineering Foundation or Society. I was very, very fortunate that a family friend referred me to this program, and I was there for 3 years, 3 consecutive summers. And I would say within my cohort and my peer group, I probably had one of the more higher paying jobs in which I was, a professional at a very, very young age, learning the nuances of what the aerospace industry was about, learning how to interact with colleagues, being able to attend meetings with my boss and shadow him and kind of get a sense of some of the things that he dealt with, some of the challenges that he dealt with. And again, at that particular time, I think it was very, very innovative in terms of what Hughes Aircraft was doing, not only providing a paid opportunity for underrepresented individuals in this space, but they also invested in our development. So during these 3 summers, I had the opportunity to learn about manufacturing, the Kaiban method, in terms of like how the Japanese or how Japan was incorporating these new techniques into their manufacturing procedures. And we were adopting that and learning about that at Hughes Aircraft as an intern. I had an opportunity to learn from a communications coach. Like, how do you present to executives? Like, how do you develop your speech in your presentation? And again, this was like maybe my first or second year, fresh or sophomore, junior year, where I'm learning these valuable skills of really like, how do you become an effective corporate player, if you will, which is very, very integral when you're entering this space. Sometimes, a lot of times, jobs are given because there's a cultural fit, because you know the dynamics, you know the nuances. You come in with a little bit of understanding of how that environment works. For us, and I, very, very comfortable in saying us, underrepresented, underserved individuals, oftentimes we don't get that exposure. It's like picking up a foreign language. It's like entering a new world, if you will. If you're unfamiliar with it and don't understand how to maneuver within that world, you look very lost. And it's hard for those people who want to invest in your career to invest in you if you look like you're lost. And so the earlier we can get an understanding of that environment, how that works, how to respond, being on time, taking ownership of mistakes, and being comfortable, being confident, it helps us maybe tip the scales in our favor where we may not have a whole lot of experience for some of those individuals whose fathers have been in that industry, who they've kind of like watch their father kind of maneuver in that world, both professionally and personally, which I think is also something that we oftentimes overlook. It's so and so important for us to be able to like have an understanding of that world as we enter into it, because again, we can signal to the employer that they should be confident in giving us the opportunity, or
Yeah.
not say giving that, but letting us earn the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times they won't even let us earn the opportunity because there is a certain doubt or a certain bias as we walk in the door. But social capital for me played an important role in my development. And again, I thank Daryl Johnson, who was my manager at Hughes Aircraft, who exposed me to that world and gave me the opportunity to learn those skills at such a very, very early age.
Yeah, and the things that you're describing is what I call how to be at work skills.
Yes,
We gotta learn
absolutely.
we gotta learn how to be at work, and the access is definitely important. How do we get right in front of these opportunities at these companies? Right, I've seen this over the last decade working with young people in Chicago and New York, and I'm so proud of all my alumni. I know where they are today. Every single one of them making six figures plus in finance and technology, and it started with a simple, hey, come along with me to New York, come along with me to Goldman Sachs, come along with to this firm and see. And you've heard me say this, kids just can't be what they can't see, so we got to
Exactly right.
put them in that space. I worked on Wall Street for a long time. I saw traders bring their children to work with them,
Yes,
right? 15 years ago. And guess what most of those kids are doing today, working on Wall Street.
exactly right.
That's not by accident, right? In some way, we are all a product of our environment, for good or bad. And
Absolutely.
we,
Absolutely.
we absorb the environment that's around us. And what you were able to experience by going into Hughes and being around all these individuals, I'm sure you gain mentors, like you said, coaches, sponsors, and folks you're probably still connected to today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely.
power of relationships and business and social capital. Is I was speaking to a group of high school kids 2 weeks ago here in Chicago, and I was telling them there's individuals I met 25 years ago, and we're still connected today, and we still work and help each other out. And that's a positive relationship that you should have in business, in life. And like you said, not just in the office, because there's things that happen outside of the office that you have to participate in. But again, for a lot of students, especially from underserved communities, minority backgrounds, this is so brand new to them, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly right.
imposter syndrome is a big thing as well.
Completely agree. And I will give you just I'm a sports guy, and so I apologize in advance for these sports analogies that may come up,
No problem,
often
man. No problem.
in the conversation. But just to kind of give you a sense of, number one, I think you're absolutely right. If you can see it, you can be it. So my daughter at the time, she's a little bit older now, but at the time she was like maybe I would say 6 or 7. She didn't participate in certain extracurricular activities. She just didn't express an interest in it whatsoever. I think we put her in cheerleading, put her in soccer. No, I don't like it. We tuned into the Olympics, and at the time, Allison Felix was kind of like the featured star
Mm-hmm.
of the USA Olympic team. We turned on the Olympics. Allison Felix won the 200-meter race for the gold medal. And my daughter immediately said, that's what I want to do. And I had never seen the motivation and inspiration in my daughter,
Mm.
to the point just how impactful for her to witness Allison Felix win the 200 and for her to like internalize
Mm-hmm.
that's what she wanted to do. She put these little notes on her mirror of, Allison Felix. I want to be the next Allison Felix. I would pick her up for track practice because we signed her up for track. No, we're going to take advantage of this motivation. I pack her bag and I pick up her track shoes. There's a note that she wrote to herself that she placed in her track shoes.
Mm.
Like, I didn't teach her that, but her being able to see Allison Felix, identify with Allison Felix, and maybe she did some research on the web to kind of understand Allison Felix's track, and she began to implement that into her own
Mm.
daily routine. So seeing it and believing it, but being it relatable to you
Yeah.
is so powerful.
Yeah.
And then the other story I will share with you is, of course, in this corporate environment, there are things that you should pick up because you never know when the situation to interact outside the office will be beneficial to you. But I went to go play golf,
Mm.
and I wanted to learn how to play golf. And again, I pride myself on being able to pick up any sport, and just being able to master it very, very quickly. But what I didn't understand was that there are certain nuances, there's a certain demeanor, there's a certain mindset going into playing golf. Without knowing this, like the first, couple of times I go out, just, throw some cargo shorts on, a t-shirt, and I go out and play golf. And every now and then there would be this guy that I would get paired up with who I didn't know. He would come dressed to a T as if he was Tiger Woods. I mean, he walked off the Tiger Woods showroom floor.
Wow.
Brand new Nike hat, brand new Nike polo, brand new Nike pants, brand new Nike shoes. Now, I knew I was a better athlete. You can look at somebody like, I'm a better athlete than him. I'm going to
Yeah.
beat him today. But at the end of the 9 holes, somehow, some way, this guy who wasn't as athletic as me was beating me.
Mm.
And I had to think about that and grapple with that. Like, what is so different? I'm a better athlete than him. I hit the ball further than him. But what is it about his makeup and his character that at the end of the round, he has me by 2 or 3 strokes?
Mm.
And I started to say, well, number one, he looks like a golfer. Okay. He plays like a golfer. He has the pace and the cadence of a golfer. He's going through routines as a golfer. And then I, remember a quote from Deion Sanders that said, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. And so I'm like, hey, wait a minute, there's something here.
Mm-hmm.
How can I put myself in that mindset of being a golfer? You know what? I have to dress like a golfer. You have to put yourself in that framing of being a golfer, that mindset of being a golfer. And what ends up happening is you start to pick up on the nuances of the game. You start to understand that, no, you don't have to out athlete and out muscle the golf course. But what you can do is get to a space where you're comfortable. Play within your limits. Play within the confines of your ability. Play within the confines of your imagination. Once you start able to understand those nuances again of the golf world and apply it to yourself, now I can become a better golfer. But it all starts with like a demeanor and how you see yourself. I think has a lot to do with how you ultimately start to perform.
Yeah, as you were telling that story, Dion is the first person that came to mind because I talk about this all the time to young people. Like everywhere I go, I'm dressed like this. I'm always dressed up. I don't care who I'm
Exactly
talking.
right.
And I told them why I do that. I said because in business, executive presence matters,
Exactly right.
and perception and first impressions matter. When you walk into a room, the ability to read that room, right, and have people look at you and say, all right, well, the first impression, that's how the world works. So to your point of like this guy is dressed as a golfer, he's carrying around himself like a golfer, right? Exactly like Dion said, man, you look good, you feel good, you perform well. Like
Exactly right.
so get yourself into that mindset. And I think when we talk about imposter syndrome,
Yes.
one thing I really stress with young people is before you start an internship at a company that you've never worked at before, reach out to some people there, right?
Exactly right.
Get to know some folks, have some familiar faces. So when you walk in that door, you feel you're coming to a familiar place. Because
Exactly.
I experienced imposter syndrome for the first 10 years of my career in New York on Wall Street, being on trading floors. Nobody talked like me, looked like me. I had nothing in common to talk about. I didn't go to the Ivy Leagues. My parents didn't work in finance. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay quiet because I don't belong here. I'm just gonna do my job and go home. And slowly but surely, I started to realize I had to dress like a golfer. I had, there was things happening outside of work, and I'm from the Caribbean. I play cricket and soccer. That's why I grew up playing. I said, you know what? That can't be that hard, man. Let me go out there, let's swing some gloves. You know what I'm saying? So I went out there, but I made friends. I was trying. I did my best. I was be able to come out my shell. I found my voice, and
Yeah.
right, and it is a learning process. It's not easy. It is a struggle. And I tell young people, and I tell folks all the time, the very first time we do anything, we're really bad at it.
Exactly right.
That doesn't mean that we stop, right?
Exactly right.
You keep going, you keep swinging that club, and all of a sudden, boom, you're doing your thing. And like you said, the key is really having that mindset shift and not
Yes.
giving up and realizing that nobody started off great on day one at anything that you do,
Exactly right.
because
Exactly. And I'll just throw in another golf lesson, something that I use to this day. My grandfather taught me a long time ago that golf is life. And I didn't understand it then, but during COVID, the golf was the only activity that, we could participate in outdoors and, kind of freely. And I made up my mind that I was going to become better at something during COVID. And I happened to choose golf. And I wanted to like dig into that quote that my grandfather, conveyed to me years ago, that golf is life. And it's how do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with success? Are you comfortable in uncomfortable situations? Can you be creative enough to figure out how to get yourself out of a jam? But more importantly is at any given time, can you drum up the confidence in yourself to pull off something as basic as hitting a 2-foot putt? Can you build up the confidence in yourself to hit a 150-yard shot? Being able to tap into that confidence and that mindset of being able to perform under pressure has so many different, applications outside of the game that I think I've become a better professional at work because I am putting myself in situations where I'm constantly growing, constantly having to struggle with that confidence, struggle with that imposter syndrome. But the more you put yourself in those situations, the more comfortable you get with it. And I've been able to translate that from my golf game on a Saturday morning with 3 or 4 of my guys and how I perform at work. And so if I have, a difficult situation at work or a difficult challenge, my instant thought is, okay, I'm in the rough, I'm behind some trees. How do I get to 150 yards? So I've got this situation or challenge at work. How do I get to my 150-yard challenge or my 150-yard shot at work? And now I can begin to work through those issues. And if I get to that 150-yard mark, guess what? I've got the confidence to pull it off. And so those are the things I kind of work through, and being able to leverage golf and utilize golf in that way has helped me grow as a professional. So I would say to all the young folks out there, it may not seem like a sport, but there's so much more that stepping outside of your comfort zone and learning something new helps you with your daily work as a professional.
But definitely, man, the key word that resonated with me is confidence, right?
Absolutely.
My wish for every young person across the globe is confidence, because
Yes.
I see what happens when I meet a young person on day one, and then 3 months later, a whole new person, because they've gotten those reps in whatever they're doing.
There
Right,
you go.
you get the reps in, and okay, I could do this. I'm confident. I have my elevator pitch. I can walk into that room. I could go into that interview. I could step on a golf course, and act as if I know what I'm doing, because I do know what I'm doing. Right, I've been disciplined. I've been motivated. I've learned all the things I needed to learn. And now coming into that boardroom or that meeting or that trading floor or wherever you're stepping onto a campus for the first time as a college student, if you've gotten those reps in, man, like I've seen, because not having that confidence makes you go into a shell, makes you like stay in the corner, not ask questions, not volunteer for things, not join organizations, all the things you should be doing in college as a college student or as a young professional. But confidence, man, like I look at young people and I say to them, remember day one when we met? You would ask a question, you were sitting in the back, and I would call on them intentionally. And I would make them sit up front intentionally. And every time I met them in the elevator, I say, all right, let's go. I need to hear elevator pitch right now. Put them on the spot. And 10 years later, they're killing it, doing their thing on Wall Street, investment banking, private wealth management. Again, golf is an excellent analogy because you're out there by yourself.
Exactly right.
You have a lot of time to think, right?
Exactly right.
You replay that shot over and over again. You go home and think about it over. Sorry, I gotta go. I know what to do. I know what I did wrong.
Exactly
I
right.
know how to fix this. So
Exactly right.
I love the fact that you lean into golf, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I think as we think about working as an intern and then transitioning into full time, I'm sure you had a lot of folks that you met along the way who became mentors, and just folks who just you can go to.
Absolutely.
You felt safe going to them. One thing I stress to young people is, especially the young people I work with, as like join employee resource groups, find mentors. Just like your daughter, right? Representation matters. When you see yourself in someone, John Rogers is a friend of mine here, Ariel Investments, and I tell him every time I see him, I said, man, what I see you doing, that inspires me, and that inspires young people when they see you, what you're doing. And same thing with you, Rick. I mean, being in your position, doing what you do, there's young boys and girls walking around, like looking around, it's like never seen someone in your role who looks like them. So that alone inspires, just like your daughter was inspired to go on and do things that seemed impossible or seemed like they never knew existed was an option for them. So maybe talk about some of the individuals that you met along your journey that have had a significant impact on your success as mentors, as friends, etc.?
Wow, I would say number one was my father. I think I came out of the womb, number one, being groomed to play shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals. But if that didn't work out, I was going to be a professional. How to handle yourself, how to conduct yourself, how to be a gentleman, how to study. One of the quotes was like, the ball's not going to bounce forever. You need to expand your horizons. And he was very diligent in staying on top of me about investing in pursuing education. And, it's emphasized in the household that hard work and perseverance overcome any challenge. But he enforced education. He was a great, great mentor, but he had the foresight of not like staying in that role, so to speak. He pushed me to expand what I like to call my individual board of directors. Daryl Johnson is one individual. Mike Algar is another individual, both at Hughes Aircraft, having chats about like the educational pathway, the opportunities at Hughes. Again, being able to shadow them at meetings. Like, again, I'm sophomore in college and I am hanging out with these two directors who are giving a presentation in front of like the three CEOs at that time of Hughes Aircraft. I mean, just fantastic, fantastic individuals. I had the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill at one particular moment. Gwendolyn Brown was like another mentor that I had the opportunity just to kind of learn from. Like, what is this all about? She would send me to the Capitol instead of like doing the assignment for the day, just to go learn and watch the process. And again, identify with folks who looked like me on the House floor, on the Senate floor, how they were speaking, how they were engaging. The opportunity to interact with those individuals and find other interns. But I would say, managers and mentors are all great. But I would say, like, there are other individuals around you that you can, see what they're doing and borrow from them. And so I began to look, more closely to colleagues who looked like me or didn't look like me and try to incorporate some of the things that they were doing into my game or into my repertoire. And this is, man, another sports lesson I'll go back that, it's been near and dear to my heart that, again, has me being able to expand and look at all the different examples I have around me and those individuals who are my board of directors. Growing up, I played at basketball in middle school. We won the city championship, and my middle school PE coach, teacher at that particular time, Mr. Hiller, who was another mentor, said to me, "Ricky, I think you have the ability and the talent to go to the NBA." I'm like, wow. Now, Bevon, I was like maybe 5 feet at the time, like maybe thinking there was a growth spurt somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But just that alone, man, my confidence shot up. And for all intents and purposes, I thought I made it.
Mm.
I went to go play basketball that summer before high school at the local park. And like, this is where like everybody played. So everybody who was somebody played at this park. And I mean, I was one of the better point guards in the league,
Mm.
and there was another guy by the name of Alan Cavaness, who, again, I knew I was a better athlete. We would compete. I would win some, he would lose some. But at the end of the day, I just knew I was better. Alan invited me over to his house, and we played basketball from the moment I got there in the afternoon. We went down to the local park, played basketball to dark. I came back after that and watched NBA late night on TV. Woke up in the morning, crack of dawn, went to the local, again, back to the park or the school down the street, played some more basketball. Came back for breakfast. His mom cooked eggs. We're eating, eggs and bacon. We turn on more basketball. Bevon, I'm like, man, I am just like basketballed out. Then something, just to change the conversation or talk about something different or, change the focus on the game. I asked Alan, I said, hey, man, what are you going to do after high school? He's like, I'm going to go play basketball at Georgetown University. Now, in my mind, Bevon, that's where I was going. And I was like, man, I don't nearly play as much as Alan. So number one, your dream is not exclusive to you,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're talking, we got through watching like the college basketball game of the morning. And he's like, you want to watch some more basketball? And I'm like, Alan, the game is over. What are you talking about? Bevon, he opens up his closet and he has point guard matchups that he videotaped.
Wow.
14 years old. Magic Johnson versus John Stockton. Mark Jackson versus Pearl Washington. Kenny Smith versus Rod Strickland. I mean, he's got them categorized. And I'm like, man, your dream is not exclusive to you, but you have to be open to learning from other people around you.
Yeah.
And from what I learned from Alan is that number one, you had dedication and commitment, but you can learn from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So Alan would watch and rewind the tape and like, look at this move, look at that move. How did he handle this situation? So I started to incorporate that into my repertoire. And what I found was that not only can you learn from the players, but you can learn from the commentators.
Mm-hmm.
Look how he handled himself. Look how he kept his cool, on a bad call. Look how he's orchestrating the team around him. So now I'm happy to say, proud to say, that in that moment, even Alan Cavaness became a mentor to me because I began to incorporate things into my repertoire that I saw had an impact that made him, maybe not better player, maybe a better player. But without his understanding in that, I probably wouldn't have become the player that I've become or even the individual and professional that I've become. Because now to this day, I watch YouTube. I go back and watch Obama's speeches. How does he prepare? How does he sound? What is his cadence? I go back and I watch videos of CEOs giving presentations. I watch CEOs doing interviews. I begin to incorporate that into my repertoire. So mentors and coaches are all around us. We just have to be open to being able to and humble enough
Yeah.
to say, I don't know everything. What can I learn from this individual? What can I learn from this colleague? What can I learn from this competitor? I think they call that growth mindset and being open to explore and learn. But I do know that on the other side of fear and that angst of like imposter syndrome, but being open to exploring that and diving a little bit deeper, on the other side of that is complete success in a whole different world that we don't even know about because we're afraid to take that first step or be humble enough take that initiation and learn something new from someone else.
No, I agree, and I think that's why I love working with young people because some in high school, I'm learning from them.
Exactly
And
right.
because we're of another generation, and every generation does their thing their way. But I tell people all the time, and young people have so much potential in them. And yes, I become a mentor to them, but I tell them all the time, I'm learning from you guys. And I have a mentor of mine. He's from New York, and he told me as a kid growing up in Harlem, his dad used to take him to watch Dr. King and Malcolm X speak. And
Yes.
he said, he could remember looking at the audience, and they were able to take very complex issues and break it down in such a way that anybody in the audience could understand, right? And he said he learned. So he went on to be a successful nonprofit leader, and he's in Chicago now. But every time I see him, he always tells me how he learned from just being in the audience and looking at the way they were able to take this very, very complex, talking about economy, race relations, civil rights, right? And help message that in a way that folks got it. And
Exactly right.
he learned from them. And I do the same thing that I'm on YouTube all the time. Every time I have to like give a talk or wherever I gotta go, I'm looking at Obama, I'm looking at Dr. King, I'm looking at Malcolm X. I'm learning. I'm like, listen, there's ways to like message to folks, right? Very complicated things, and artificial intelligence is one of those things. I find myself doing what I call AI explain events now, literally explaining what this thing is. But to your point, learning from speakers that I watch, and some of them are much younger than me, and I'm saying I could use that. Let me put that in my pocket here. Let me start following this person. I think as we talk about internships, apprenticeships, how to be at work skills, reflecting on your career, in today's world, in your world here at WGU, how do you see the availability and the value of internships compared to when you started? I know you might be interacting with employers as well too. You have a lot of students who might be looking for internships, but how was that shift? What's your perspective on the shift as it is today?
It is a total game changer for underrepresented and underserved individuals to be able to have the first line of their resume align with their degree program. Case in point, and I'll go back to my personal example when I was at Hughes Aircraft, interned for 3 consecutive summers, hired full time for about 7 months, was laid off. They laid off everybody who didn't have an MBA and anybody who was close to retirement. So here I am with a bachelor's degree in international business with a concentration in finance from Howard University. with 3 summers of experience in procurement. Total misalignment. I try to get back into the aerospace industry, and what we're taught is like, hey, detail your resume. Graduated international business. Concentration in finance, and I was a procurement intern for 3 years and a full-time employee in procurement for 7 months. Didn't have enough experience per se to continue on that journey, and had no experience in international business and international finance. And so I found myself really stuck, just in terms of like, where do we go? Because the aerospace industry had just a complete downturn. So nobody was really hiring. Fast forward to where we are now, where the cost of education is beyond like affordable. Most students probably have to pay their way through school, and they're doing it in such a way where they're working at Best Buy as a retail or cashier, and maybe they're trying to pursue a degree in accounting. Again, we're taught to put all your experience on the resume and graduate with an accounting degree. Now it's not so much as like who you know in the system, but like how do you work the system along with who you know in the system. But if you have misalignment with those things, the ATS tracking system or the ATS platform that most corporations are utilizing will disqualify you. Period. Very noble of you to work your way through college. Very proud of the fact that you were able to graduate with this degree. But unfortunately, your experience is not aligned with your degree program. This is why I love WGU so much. It gives those individuals who have to work, have to earn and learn as they go through their educational journey, they have the optimal opportunity to align that first line of their resume with their degree program, which is so important in today's world. That gets you through the first line of defense for some of these companies. Now, and it's especially for underserved and underrepresented individuals, because more than likely we have to work our way through. But the quicker you can get the first line of your resume aligned with your degree program, you got a shot. Without that alignment, you don't have a shot. So to me, if we're talking about equitable pathways and creating opportunities for underserved and underrepresented individuals, it is a must. It is a must that we create opportunities for them to at least get some intern experience, some apprenticeship experience that aligns with their degree program. They've got a shot. And I'm a huge advocate of identifying accounting firms. Maybe it's H&R Block, where they want to create, all these franchisees or whatnot, H&R Blocks. Why not hire an accounting student at WGU and bring them in to, these accounting franchisees around the United States where they have the opportunity maybe just to do taxes.
Yeah.
And learn about taxes and accounting while they're learning about taxes and accounting at WGU.
Yeah.
They can leverage that experience and accelerate to completion. And now they can optimize their workforce value as it relates to doing taxes in the workforce. They optimize their value to maybe being an H&R Block tax employee. Like that is optimal. That changes the whole conversation as it relates to those equitable pathways. That is an equitable pathway in which we can, how can I put it, change the tables in terms of like we didn't have the relationships, our parents didn't have those connections to kind of help us along the way. We level the playing field, if you will, by giving our kids that opportunity to align their degree with their experience as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think you answered my next question, which was creative ways to get folks to internships and experience and build their resume. And that example is perfect. I tell young people all the time, like my job working with them in my nonprofit organization, your job is to make their resume irresistible to an HR manager. Irresistible.
Exactly.
Like they see that resume, it's like, wait, I have to meet this young person.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly
I
right.
must have a conversation with them because they've demonstrated that they want to be in this business. They've
Yes.
demonstrated that they've taken the necessary steps to get there, and they're persistent. They're constant. They're reaching out. They're doing all the other things that they need to do. I need to meet this person. On paper, they're an amazing future employee. Let's meet them in person and make sure they can do the job. But I love the creativity around working with accounting firms and other folks like that. And the last time we spoke, you told me about the Tech Impactors Network. right? And building that ecosystem. I joined one of the calls as well. I was super impressed. So I'm excited to hear how that's been going, but also just describe what it is as well.
The Tech Impactors Network is really an alumni-driven initiatives in which our alums are kind of leading the conversation around creating equitable pathways for underserved, underrepresented individuals into the tech space. Our alums work in the tech space: Deloitte, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Apple, Lucasfilms, Cisco. They have been gracious enough to kind of like, reach back and pull others along. So we've had kind of like those relationships in place through our alums and the corporations that we partner with. So that's the demand side. They say they're looking for diverse talent. Let's be the bridge between the demand side and the supply side. So who is on the supply side? We looked at individuals, or let's just say nonprofit organizations like Hack the Hood, Empower, Street Code, Latina Geeks, Conectado. Those are organizations providing baseline IT certificates for underrepresented individuals. We are simply being a convener of these two groups as we've built relationships with the two, to kind of say, hey, let's come together, let's drive collective impact by putting the demand side together with the supply side of talent, and fostering conversation around what that world looks like from an employer standpoint. So we have our alums agreeing to do resume reviews. We have these organizations who are recruiting diverse talent and putting them through programs. And then as WGU, we have articulation agreements with some of these organizations in which their IT certificates are articulated into WGU, and those students can gain admission into WGU and hopefully drive enough conversation, drive enough activity where our alum can influence a LinkedIn and say, hey, you know what? Let's give this individual an opportunity. We've created a mentor opportunity, social capital opportunity for some of these students. And we're hoping that some of our alums can sponsor some of these individuals that we're working with that are enrolled in WGU and put them in position to either gain an internship at one of these tech companies or even a tech project, tech sponsored project, so they can demonstrate their skills, their competencies, their knowledge as it relates to a specific problem that that tech industry may be, dealing with. But again, to your point, it gives the impression where that they have to meet that student.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have blown them away with their resume. They've blown them away because they walk in the door, speaking the language, walking the walk, talking the talk, simply because we created this ecosystem where they can learn the nuances of how that world operates. And so that's what we're really trying to drive with the Tech Impactors Network. Right now, we're based in the Bay Area, California, so San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco area, working with some of those tech companies there. And again, those organizations are in that area and really trying to foster an environment of driving collective impact with all the stakeholders involved who say they are committed to creating pathways for underrepresented, underserved individuals into the tech space.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned to you I was on the West Coast recently. I was in Oakland also, and connected with a bunch of fintech companies out there. So I would love to see how I can help. If there's companies you're not working with, man, consider me a resource. We'll connect, and I'll send you some make some introductions as well too, because
Absolutely.
that's so valuable, man. And you mentioned, first of all, building an ecosystem is not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's like sometimes you're trying to herd cats, you're trying to like get people to move in this direction. And you and I know if it's not somebody's full-time job to move these things along, they kind of get stagnant. Even though everybody has great intentions, everybody wants to help, right? Everybody gets the vision, they see it, but somebody has to move them along. So talk about some of the challenges that you might have encountered trying to like bring stakeholders together to support that initiative,
Well, I guess this would be an opportunity where I could like just thank some of the individuals on my team. WG is one of the greatest, organizations that I've ever worked with, simply because everybody is mission aligned and mission driven. Loretta Van Divier is our comms person who takes it upon ourselves to, develop a newsletter to stay in contact with some of our Tech Impactors Network participants, from the nonprofits to even our alums to the corporations who have signed up to be a part of it. Erica Adams, who's from our advancement department. This was part of her brainchild as well, who sees the funding aspect of it. Because what we've learned at WGU is that if there's a workforce shortage and we have a educational pathway that maps to that workforce shortage, we can drive scale, we can drive students if there's funding. And again, we want to be able to remove that barrier of financial barrier for some of our students. So if we can put this together and create a nice little philanthropic package, we know we can drive impact. So Erica Adams has just been fantastic in helping us drive that message and kind of create that application for some of our funding partners. Bob Benson, who's done a wonderful job of just kind of staying in contact and advancing the conversation every chance that we get. And then Sam Smith, who was our strategic partner manager in the area, kind of again part of this was his kind of like vision, just in terms of like how do we get everybody in the same room. And Sam was a connector, and he had these connections. But yeah, we just kind of drove all of this, and it's a labor of love. Again, I go back to the Ray Lewis quote. Yeah, you just pay me for practice. You get Sundays for free. I mean, we all love what we're doing. And so, yes, it's been a challenge, but this has just been a wonderful, wonderful team to be involved in this type of work simply because we care so much and we know the impact it can have and we know the difference it will make at some point in time in the near future.
Yeah, and I think as we think about organizations that are out there who you're not working with now, I mean, what a piece of advice would you give them if they're looking to like foster like meaningful access to opportunities for young professionals from underserved communities? I mean, you've kind of like given the answer already, but what's like the key message you have for those folks?
If there is any organization, nonprofit, for-profit, corporation that is interested in driving change, understand that it's a collective effort. It takes all of us. It really, really does. These opportunities don't exist if you don't think it takes all of us. But some of these corporations and some of our alums understand that, and they're willing to work with us. We're simply providing a forum, providing a venue to have that open dialogue with those stakeholders that can make decisions or at least talk to people who do make those decisions. It is a collective effort. And again, we're just trying to drive collective impact and solve what we see is a vital issue, not only to the state of California, but it's a recipe to solve equitable outcomes for anybody who wants to take a chance and invest in themselves. And that social capital piece is so, so important. Again, giving folks the opportunity to align that first line of their resume, be it project, be it apprenticeship, be it internship, with their degree program is vital as these individuals being able to get over the first hurdle and finding that resilient job.
Yeah, and you guys are building the blueprint, man. Like you said, this is something repeatable, right? You can rinse and repeat this across the country, right, as a model. And for employers that you work with who have a national presence, right, you can say, hey, we're doing this in California. You're in the Midwest, you're on the East Coast, we can do it over there as well. So I think you're really kind of building the blueprint that, and you said you're making it easy. And the one thing I always say is like, if you give people the easy button to press, it's easy to get
Yes.
things done, right? So you package it up nicely. It's like, here you go, right? Click here, you sign here, you make it so easy for them, and you guys are really doing a lot. You and your team are doing a lot of heavy lifting, right, by driving this forward and bringing folks together. So I love that, man. And I think as we think about work, as we think about the future of work, we definitely want to talk about we're in the age of AI, the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence. Right. As we're speaking now, this thing is changing already. There's a new model out somewhere, right? How do you think AI and other like tech advancements are like changing workforce expectations and opportunities?
Oh, I guess what they're saying is technology changes workforce skills every 18 months. AI is going to compress the way it changes. I think it's something that we need to incorporate into a curriculum. It is going to be the in-demand skill. I would probably say, I mean, if it's not right now, it very well soon will be an in-demand skill. And it's something that we can leverage to accentuate our learning, to help us upskill and reskill kind of like on the spot, on demand. For companies who are not necessarily aware of like AI, they're becoming aware of it. I don't think it's something that you can replace that human interaction with, but you want to hire people that know how to utilize AI to solve company problems, company challenges, so that so the company can drive towards their objectives. And if you can build that skill in somehow, and it's something that we're exploring a little bit at WGU, and I think everybody is at this point in time. You have an employee or a student who graduates with all the skills needed to succeed in the real world. And so I think it's something that should be incorporated, something that any individual who is looking for upper mobility or career opportunities should incorporate into their tool belt. Something I've thought about, even where I'm at. I'm trying to incorporate new skills. I'm trying to learn about data analytics, and tell you this story how quickly like AI is changing.
Yeah.
I enrolled in like a Python course for $500, a couple months or whatever, and I'm struggling like with all the code and man, it's not just clicking, and like the time frame passed, and then as I'm kind of like in the midst of like struggling learning Python, I come across something that says like you can utilize AI to do all the coding for you. In the midst of a 2 month time frame of trying to teach myself Python, AI had disrupted my learning journey because AI can do it. It's being able to kind of like find those resolutions on the fly, and if you can leverage technology, you become a more valuable employee. And that's the way I see it. So
No, definitely. I tell young people, I was talking to some HR managers in finance, and they were telling me at least 40% of job descriptions for finance internships today require some knowledge of AI. So I tell young people that I talk to, I say, you don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert, but I use it. And I'm familiar with the major players, whether it be Claude, Anthropic, ChatGPT, Copilot, right? All these tools are out there. There's a laundry list of tools, but I said, start playing around with it. They're free, and get it on your resume, because
absolutely.
the ATS systems are looking for those keywords as well, and that's going to help get it to the top of the pile. So I work with entrepreneurs, founders, especially black and brown founders who are running and starting businesses on their own, and I'm teaching them how to leverage AI to help them be more
Yes,
efficient. AI becomes now the best assistant ever, right? It assists you in daily tasks that you don't have to like be spending a ton of time on. It really makes you more efficient, and it can do marketing for you. It can create pitch decks for you. It can do all these amazing things. You just got to learn, start playing around with it. So I think it's drastically changed the future of work. I'm also talking to parents as well who are unfamiliar. Many are pushing their young people towards certain careers that will be very changed because of AI, but neither them nor the teachers nor the students are aware of what's happening in the ecosystem of AI, and how things are changing. So you're in higher ed, you're talking to students all the time. And like you said, you guys are trying to incorporate that into everything you do. So I think it's also very important to really educate, the entire, not just the student, but their parents, like everyone who's around them. Because like going back to the earlier part of this conversation, kids are going to try to be what they see. And if they're not exposed or playing around with AI, it's actually setting them back. And one of my major like initiatives these days is really making sure that the digital divide doesn't get exponentially wider. It is happening really quickly because of AI, but I'm very concerned about that, and how it's going to affect skills, education, the workforce, and stuff like that too. So maybe just your thoughts on that. Like, how do you personally approach that when you talk to students or just faculty and stuff like that?
it's an in-demand skill. We pride ourselves on preparing our students with the most in-demand skills, which was kind of our blueprint for developing the four colleges: IT, Levitt School of Health, the School of Education, School of Business, all high-demand fields. We are in constant communication with some of the industry partners to help understand what are the latest skill demands that they are seeing from a trend standpoint. And we look for and seek out those opportunities to upgrade or revise our curriculum based on that feedback that we're receiving from industry. And so again, I know it's an active conversation as it relates to like where we are in our journey as being a higher education provider. So yeah, we want to we want our students to have those skills once they graduate, because we know those skills will lead to a resilient job. And that's the problem I think we're seeing with some of the brick and mortar institutions, is that the skills that they've acquired on that 5 to 6 year journey are already obsolete by the time they graduate. And I think that is something that industry has raised their hand to weigh in on, in terms of like the system is not working as it relates to graduates having those hard skills, those technical skills that we need day one. And again, being the most, or at least at one point, the most innovative university, and we still hang our hat on that, is that our ability to redevelop, revise our curriculum again to address some of the workforce needs and incorporate that into our existing curriculum, I think just sets us apart. And hopefully going forward, we will become the preferred higher education institution when companies are looking for students with the technical skills needed to be competitive out the gate. So yeah, just want to toot WG's horn in that fashion because I absolutely believe that.
No, it's you guys are very unique. I work with a lot of colleges and universities and community colleges all over the place, and you guys are so close to the work, right? To the corporate partner. You're so close to what they're doing, and too many times higher education focuses on higher education. And
Yes,
and I try to tell them, I have a lot of conversations with discussions with professors, and I tell them, listen, you guys have to stay in tune with the workforce. You have to understand that you're preparing young people for the workforce. So the workforce has to actually kind of inform your curriculum, right? You got to bring corporate America and the classroom closer together. And you guys are doing, again, innovation wise, you guys are like on the cutting edge, from what I've seen. So I think the fact that you guys are so like in tune with the corporate space and saying, hey, what are you looking for in your future employee? How
exactly.
can we partner, collaborate to make sure this graduating class meets the requirements that you have for this future employee, skills wise, professional development, awareness of what you guys do, all those things. Because if you just literally put a kid in a class for 4 years and just have them heads down in a book, by the time they're ready to leave and join the workforce, now you have to almost train them for that too. So
Exactly
I
right.
mean, again, kudos to you guys for being so forward thinking, on that stuff as well.
Well, thank you. And again, this is a labor of love, and again, understanding how education was emphasized in my household. And if you haven't been able to tell from my stories, I'm super, super competitive. I believe in myself, and I'm willing to invest in myself because I know that I'll win. And so I got an undergraduate degree from Howard University. Was able to maneuver around, but wanted more, and realized that I needed more education to go further with my career. So I went to USC and got a master's in communication management. Wanted more after that, and saw that there was a need for it, at the time I was in the telecommunication space, and saw that world shrinking, and needed to upskill and reskill and set myself apart from the competition. So I went and pursued an MBA, University of Michigan. So I have 2 master's degrees, a bachelor's degree. That is a lot of student debt, a lot of student debt. Thankful that it certainly helped me get my foot in the door. Certainly helped, get me to a point where I am today. But it came at a cost. And I think WGU's nonprofit competency based model is a game changer for those individuals who are not as competitive or as silly as I was to take on that much debt in pursuit of higher aspirations. And the fact that we work with corporations to ensure that, again, those skills and competencies are the most in demand skills and competencies, the latest skills and competencies are embedded in the programs, lets me know that we're putting our students in the best position, not only from a skill standpoint to be competitive in the workforce, but also it doesn't come at the cost of an arm and a leg to do it. And so, very, very gratifying that I have that opportunity to forge and identify these different pathways for individuals who want to invest in themselves. And so, yeah, it's just a great organization to be a part of, and happy to be doing the work that I'm doing.
Yeah, one thing Rick, I'll mention on student loans and debt. I'm in the same position, right? So, but we are now in a position to help kind of like cut down that runway, right, for the next kids who are coming up,
Exactly
right?
right.
So we have learned a lot. Like it came at a cost, but I probably won't trade it for the world because it's led me to where I'm at today. And now we have
Exactly.
the ability to give back and say, hey, let's figure out a different way, right? Let's help you graduate as close to debt free as possible. Let's help you work your way through college, but get meaningful resume building experience along the way so you can land a job that makes sense. You can end up in a career that makes sense. So I think, it's folks like yourself, man, that I love talking to because, hearing your story, hearing what led you to where you are today, super inspiring for anyone who tunes into this. So I think as we kind of wrap up, man, just any kind of last words around social capital, the things that you're doing at WG, any kind of things you do outside of work that you support. You know, again, you and I connected a couple of years ago, and again, we stayed connected. Again, this podcast is about me talking to my friends. Like we have a conversation about things that we think matter to us. We talk about our journey, our stories. But I've been a fan, a cheerleader, admirer from afar, man, and we've never met in person. But I feel like we know each other, and I feel like we'll play golf soon. But
Yeah, Absolutely. We're gonna change that real soon, Bevon. We're gonna change that soon.
Any last words, man, that you kind of want to mention before you wrap up?
Last words I would say is that it takes all of us, right? Everybody has to be bought into the greater vision, the impact that we can drive together. For those individuals and those students who are looking for that glimmer of hope that inspires them. There was a quote I heard on a podcast. Again, I tell you, I listen to podcasts and I put them in my, I borrow and put things in my tool belt. But I can't remember this guy's name, but he said, education and information allows you to participate and change the conversation. If you can change the conversation and you can participate in the conversation, you can change the compensation. If you can change the compensation, you can change your destination. And so I would say, again, find those opportunities where you can start that journey of starting acquiring as much education and information as you can so that you can participate in these other conversations or change these other conversations that are leading to better compensated opportunities. And that's how you start to change your life and impact the lives of others. But again, it takes all of us to participate and drive that collective impact. But for those individuals, it has to start with you being hungry enough and humble enough to, again, start to seek out those education and information opportunities.
Yeah, and there's a ripple effect to that, like you said, man. You can change. It starts with one person, then that could affect generations to come. So
Absolutely.
I've seen it myself. We talked about mentors before, and I tell young people, and I tell everybody, mentors minimize mistakes.
Absolutely. And mentors play a huge, huge part of that. And again, that's part of the information seeking person. Raise your hand, invite people to be your mentor, invite them to be on your board of directors so that you can have those conversations that allows you to minimize mistakes along your journey. And you and I come from that world where we took on a whole lot of student debt. If there's anybody that I can help in your cohort, your group, happy to be a mentor for those individuals that you're serving. Because again, there's just a lot of information that I'm willing to share, can share, that will help individuals, again, avoid those mistakes.
No, definitely. And Rick, man, I'll just say thank you so much. Much gratitude to you for making time to have this conversation. I love what WGU is doing. Anything I could support, consider me a resource. You know how to reach me. I'm happy to help any way I can because it's all, like you said, it's a collaborative impact, man. We can't do it by ourselves. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, I know what you do. I know you're subject matter expert in what you do. I'll reach out to you and say, hey, Rick, I'm thinking about this. And you're always happy to jump on a call and talk more. So again, appreciate you being on the podcast, man. This is not the last conversation we'll have. I'm sure we'll follow up and talk again, but just it means a lot to me personally for you to make time to have this discussion, man.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And thanks for all that you do in helping create those pathways with the organization and the work that you're doing with some of the young folks that you're working with. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one. Appreciate it.
Hey, you too.